Welcome to the collective. My name is Leah Bowden, and tonight is the guest room. This is the evening on the collective community where we invite somebody in to have a conversation about their life, their work, their writing, their creativity, whatever it is. And we hopefully will draw out of them many words of wisdom that will help us and inspire us in our own journey. So, many people gathered here tonight will be home educators, mothers. We may have fathers on here too. We have opened up the room for anybody who would like to join us. So if you're live in the Zoom room and you're just coming in or you haven't done so yet, please say hello in the chat. Let us know where you're joining us from. But so far, we have people from all over North America, Great Britain, South Africa. I mean, it's fantastic. We've got people from all over. If you're watching on the replay, welcome. We're so glad. Now, you may be listening on the podcast style thing we've put out on Substack, or you may be watching on the video. You won't be able to see any of the comments that I refer to, but I will read them out, so don't worry. All this will be put out on a Substack replay, and it will be on a Substack post. So you will be able to ask questions. I'm going to collaborate with Leslie. I'll kind of tag her in. So you'll be able to ask your own questions, maybe throw some comments out if you like, and tell us if you have read Leslie's book as well. We want to know that. Okay, Leslie, welcome. We are so glad that you're here. We're excited for this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, Leah. I am really excited to be here. This is very exciting to me to meet new people and this group of people you have collected together in one place from all over the world. It's really exciting. So
Yeah,
thank
they are amazing. I commend them to you all, all of them to you. I like this style of recording. I mean, I did podcasting for years and it's just you and that person, which is great. It's very intimate, but this feels like doing something like Oprah. So you're having a
you.
conversation in front of a large, and I love that we've got a studio audience.
That's
And
awesome. I didn't even
I
think about
know,
that.
I just like feeding off people and having those live comments and people being able to kind of be in the podcast room with you. It's quite fun. So I hope you enjoy it. Okay, well, why don't you kick us off? Some people may know you, some people may not. So let's pretend nobody does.
Okay.
What would you love for us to know about you? Introduce yourself and your family and anything that you think would be a good introduction to Leslie Martino.
Sure. Okay. Yes, my name is Leslie Martino, and as you might have seen from our conversation before, I am in Florida. I live there with my family. We are in Central Florida, so near the Orlando area, near Disney. That's what everybody always comes to this area for. We're just north of that. And I originally am from New York, and my husband and I are both originally from New York, but we both moved to Florida, and our children were born here in Florida. So I homeschool our four children, and I have a 15-year-old, a 13, almost 13, and then I have twins. They are 10. They'll be 11 in May. So we have always been homeschooling. Um, I always love how Leah says home educating. I love that.
Yes.
Yes.
You can adopt it if you like.
I love it. Um, Yes, so we have been doing that. And as Leah also mentioned, I wrote a book called The Joy of Slow: Restoring Balance and Wonder to Homeschool Learning. And that came out back in August. And I do a lot of speaking and consulting and coaching to help families really think about a lot of the ideas that are actually in that book, which have to do with slowing down, enjoying the process of learning, enjoying your family, building connection. Those are just some of the most inspiring things
Yeah.
for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Did you ever homeschool in New York?
Okay, so I didn't say this. I did not homeschool in New York. I was a teacher, though, for a very long
Oh,
time.
okay.
Yes, and I taught in elementary school, middle school, high school. I was even a
Wow.
graduate school adjunct professor for teachers becoming teachers. So, like, I love all things education and learning.
I didn't
And
know that about you. Do you know? I
yes,
don't remember that about. Yeah, I may have known that, but the whole that's amazing. So you were a teacher of teachers, a bit like Charlotte Mason, then, Leslie.
yes. Actually,
Yes.
that's really interesting that you say that because when I read her writing and that really resonates with me. That's where I
Right.
started loving children. It was before I had children and thinking about children and loving their ideas. And I actually, well, when I moved from New York to Florida, the school system was very different. And I was looking for a place where I knew that I could thrive, and I knew that it
Right.
was a very particular kind of environment. At the time, I wasn't finding it. And it was actually back then, before we had kids, that I said, my husband and I started talking about, I think I'm going to homeschool and just create this environment that I love at home. And that's what we did.
I love that. I love that. That's amazing. So we're going to give some time to talk about your writing a book, and I want to get into this. And maybe this question kind of overlaps with that anyway. But could you tell us, if we gave you a soapbox and said, Leslie, stand on there, talk for as long as you want about whatever you want. What is a great passion in you? What do you love to talk to people about?
Okay, that's a great question. I think that I would have to say that one of those things is, I always say I've always been in the world of education, but really I like to talk about learning. I like
Mm,
to talk about the way children and human beings in general, all of us,
yes.
the way we learn, the way we naturally learn, the way we come to know things, the type of, because there's so many things involved in that. It's about how we take in information, but it's also the time that we need to actually grow and practice authentic skills, interest, how learning changes when it's in partnership, how I like to I guess in a lot of ways, I like to study human behavior.
Yeah.
And um, I, when it comes to learning, that's just something that's always fascinating to me. And I've always been a watcher and an observer of
Mm,
how, you know, learning happens. And so I love to talk about it. And I put it in a homeschooling context in many instances, but really it's just learning that happens anywhere. And I think what I also love is the joy of learning. I think learning is inherently
yeah.
a very joyful process. And so I like to talk about joy, and I like to talk about connection, because I feel as if relationship and connection is at the heart of a lot of meaningful learning experiences. And I felt that from the time that I was a classroom teacher. The deeper connections that I built with the families, with my kids, their parents, with other teachers, I just felt like all of us, we had richer conversations.
Mm,
Connection was at the heart of it all. And as a parent, homeschooling my own children, you know, if I focus so much on the learning and care nothing about connection, it's almost counterproductive. Do you know what I mean?
right. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I could talk about those things for a long time because they're meaningful to me. I'm passionate about them. And because I think that it's something that a lot of people could talk about in different ways and in different contexts.
Yeah.
When
Absolutely. No, go
sorry,
ahead.
I
No,
just
go
made me
ahead.
think about
I mean,
something.
sorry, you've got the soapbox, not me. So you go ahead.
Well, it just made me think about this. So when I recorded the audiobook for The Joy of Slow, I was sitting in the sound booth, and it was just three people. It was myself, the sound engineer, and in my headphones was the audiobook director.
Mm,
And we all come from three very different experiences, but all of them, it was so it was so meaningful, and because to think that those people had to read my words, and then we were sitting here, but I had so much fun in that experience because we kept stopping to talk about different ideas that were in the book, and I loved learning about them and learning about their lives, and we talk so much about learning and connection and joy,
I
and it's a
love it.
sound engineer and an audiobook director, not involved in the world of education at all, but there's something in those ideas that everybody can think about.
Yeah. Okay, I have so many threads that I'm picking up on. One, audiobook director. I didn't get one of those. That sounds amazing. There was me and a technician. But I got there in the end, so that's all right. That sounds amazing. I must mention that to my publisher.
Yes,
Leslie had a
no problem.
director.
You should mention it for
I
sure.
will. It's great. It's great. Yeah, I mean, you're in the right room. We love to talk about learning as well. I mean, this is just kind of a big part of the narrative in the collective that we love to talk about. And whether we're doing a book club or we're actually reading Charlotte Mason's work, these threads come through. And, you know, um, Mason said, the soul end of education is growth. And so for
Mm.
me, learning is about moving forward in the journey, whether it's like a tiny bit or a huge leap.
Mm.
I think if we're growing and learning, it is so exciting. I don't know if you've ever done the Strengths Finder. It's one of those kind of like it's not really a personality test, it's more of well, it's a strengths test. So I did it in a workplace years and years and years ago,
Oh,
and one of my highest strength, it's by if somebody knows about it, or if you find it, have a little Google for me, put it in the chat, guys, somebody can do that. um and my one of my highest strengths was learner. I just love to learn, and that doesn't mean I've got a PhD and have achieved, the highest academic success, but it means every day I get excited about learning something new, whether it's a new bird call that I've recognized, or something new in technology that I've figured out, or, a new recipe. It doesn't matter what it is. If I feel like I have grown a little bit, I get very excited about it. So
ah,
I love that, Leslie. I love that you're talking about that.
yeah, and that, yes. And now I'm like, yes, this makes a lot of sense why I love doing.
Yes.
Because no, I feel like that's very similar between us. And you said this word and something inside of me leaped. It was growth.
Yes.
And so, yes, I think very much I equate learning with growth. And, you know, to even just to grow through life, to be a growing, aware individual who actually is intentional about the things that they're growing in. I just feel like anybody in
Yeah.
any walk of
Yeah.
life who has that sort of same mindset, I'm I love talking to. I
Yes.
love,
Yes.
I love talking about that and
Yeah.
what they're doing and their what they're interested in. It's just exciting. It's a very
I
exciting,
love that.
yeah.
Okay, guys, so while we're talking about this, I have a little challenge for you. Why don't you all put in the chat something new that you've learned either today or the past couple of days? It doesn't matter how grand or mundane, we would love to hear from you. Let us know something new that you have been learning, whether it's a new like little stitch in your cross stitch, or it's an epic theological understanding. Whatever it is, pop it in the chat. Let us know, what are you growing and learning in at the moment? What is it you've been excited about? Okay, so I love this. We're definitely, I love going down this path. I mean, have you got something you could share with us, Leslie? Is there something that you've been learning recently that you are, yeah, it's fresh in your mind?
You know,
Anything last few days?
when you first asked the question, the thing that popped into my mind was that one of the things that I love that my children do, um, when we are going into a time of work off, we have a special name for it in my home. We call it our project time, but really it's where we're all just sort of going off and pursuing work for our own purposes. But one of the things that I love that my children do, because sometimes we'll just have a quick meeting with each other and share about what it is we're learning, challenges we're having, and we'll, welcome feedback, questions, comments, what have you. But my children always say to me, "What about you, mommy?
Mm,
What are you working on today?" And I love that
so
because
good.
my answers are always all over the place. Sometimes it's very
Mm.
concrete, like I'm taking this online art class and I'm trying to learn how to shade horses, um,
Wow.
and sometimes, and this week it was, I'm designing a 50-page guide and I'm doing the graphic design for it. And I'm really struggling. And my daughter said, "But you love designing." And I said, "I do. But this is very um I was gonna say, what's that word? It takes a long time. It's very slow work
Yeah.
and it's repetitive and
Tedious.
it's tedious.
Yeah.
That's the word I was looking for.
Yes.
And I was kind of struggling with that, but I said that I only struggle because I put a deadline on the other side of it. And so then
Right.
that led to another conversation about,
Yeah.
if the flow of work and how it's affected when we think of, what progress looks like. And if we terminate that progress too soon, like in our minds in the end, does it change the
Yeah.
way we approach it? Anyway, but so saying all that to say, I feel like my answers are all over the place, but I think that's kind of fun. So yes, I'm
No,
taking
it's
an art class.
great. I
Yes,
love that.
I'm graphic designing for this guide, you know.
So great. I love that. So I visited the Chicago Institute of Art or Chicago Art Institute, whatever the way around, for the first time last week. And I try and visit art in museums and galleries all over, wherever I go in the world. And that, have you been to that one? Have you been to the Chicago?
I have not been to that
Oh
one.
my, I mean, I know people here have. It is outstanding. And so I'll tell you one little thing that I learned,
Mhm.
which I've been mulling over, is that Van Gogh's brother was an art dealer. I didn't realize this. And I've read all sorts of books on him. And he
Mhm.
came to Paris to be with his brother. His brother was dealing art and Van Gogh was creating art. And I was like, I took that, when you're reading those plaques in galleries,
Yeah.
like the little bit at the side, two things come to mind. One, who has the job of writing these? I would like that job. I mean, if anybody can get me that job, I would like to write about the art. And then the
Mhm.
second thing was just like, I am going to remember that about, I read it through and then I turned to my friend. So I narrated it straight away. I was like, did you know Van Gogh's brother was an art dealer? So it
Of
was
course.
really, yes. So let's have a little dip. Let's see what people are learning. Oh, love this. See, hang on. We'll go from the bottom. I'm currently learning about oh, my thingy's in the way. Hang on a second. My sorry, Victoria. I am. Oh, there we go. It's something's covering it. Reflexive learning in pediatric chaplaincy. Victoria, you are amazing. Sounds incredible. I'm learning to cook like a vegan so that I can bring more life to our veggies. Very good. I'm learning about the gut brain health connection. Wow, these are amazing. We
Wow.
went to a Saxon and Viking day yesterday, and we learned to braid like a Viking. Very good. And Victoria's saying, yes, my children ask me to, I love sharing my learning with them, especially things I find hard work. Yes, I love that. Elizabeth saying, I learned how to properly use the countertop apple peeler. Cora, that's a very important lesson. I love that. Let's see if I've missed any there. Do add them, guys, as we're talking. Autumn saying, when you have a breakthrough in any area, it is not a one-time event. You keep practicing for a lifetime. So true. It's absolutely true. Anna's saying, I just read Julie Donaldson's book, The Bowerbird, with my 4-year-old this evening and learned all about the bowerbird and how it gathers shiny and colourful things to fill its bower and attract a mate. I knew nothing about the bowerbird before this evening. That's amazing. And one last one, Alison. Today I recognized a Carolina chickadee without having to look it up to identify. Well done. That is a brilliant one. We endorse the bird ones. That's absolutely brilliant. Okay, so this is fantastic. Thank you guys for sharing those, and please feel free to add any more as you see, as you want to do that. Okay, Leslie, tell us now, what led you to write a book about slowing down? Was it kind of because you were just speeding through life? Was it because, I mean, you'll tell us, was it because these are the things that go through my mind when I first see a title? I'm like, I wonder where that comes from. Was it because this is just how you are naturally and you wanted to share that with the world? What was it? What led you to do that?
What led me to do it was that because I love all things learning and education, and I was a school teacher, you were always talking and thinking about educational philosophies. And when people even set out to homeschool, they always start with, well, what philosophy am I going to attach myself to or align myself with or try out or, what approach? Um, and when I began to do this with my children, just learning at home, I realized that I needed something to hold on to, like something foundational that went beyond a philosophy. And I kept asking myself, what, what is it that I really want to capture? What is it that I'm actually trying to say is meaningful? And I realized it was like an epiphany where I was like, the key to everything was really slowing down. And slowing down in many different ways for different purposes. But it started with me making a lot of mistakes and realizing that I couldn't keep that going. I couldn't sustain that. I think what happens to a lot of people who decide to homeschool their children, um, or if you just ask people, what are some of the best things about home educating or homeschooling, and they usually, if you frame the question that way, they usually light up and they start like saying, oh, I love this, or I love this, or I love this. And then after they finish, if you ask them to what degree they feel like they're experiencing all of those things that they named,
Yeah,
they will probably have like their expression will change. And it was like a phenomenon that I would notice just talking to people. I thought about my own experience and I'm like, yes, you love it for all of these reasons, but your
mm,
day-to-day experience can very easily begin to feel not joyful.
right.
It can lack the pizzazz that you want it to have. And so I realized that I wanted to talk about all of that through the language of slowing down to really hone in on some really important ideas. I think that when I say slow down, one of the things that I'm inherently saying is that we have to just stop doing for the sake of doing, or step off of the hamster wheel, just thinking
Yeah.
do and produce, to actually sit back and reflect about what is meaningful, what do I value, and that might look different for my family than it does for another family. But what it means is that I'm clear on the things that I value, and I'm going to spend my energy and my time putting effort toward the things that I actually value, because we end up
Mm,
feeling so tired and disgruntled when we are working and doing things that we don't actually value as highly. And we're frustrated because the things that we actually do value are not happening. So I'm frustrated because I'm not having a great relationship with my kids, or I'm not having, an experience where I feel like I'm deeply connecting with them. And I'm so frustrated because that's actually a high value to me, but I'm not putting
right.
intention and energy toward it. Instead, I'm just calling out directions and saying, do this, do this, do this, do this all day. So it's like, there's something wrong with that, you
So
know?
can I pause you in what are the barriers then? What else are we doing? What
Mm.
is it that's in the way?
Yeah, I think that some of it has to do with checking off the boxes that we think are um what we should be doing or what we should be caring about, simply because that's the messaging we've gotten, or because
Mm,
it's less fearful. I mean,
right,
'cause a lot of it is about like wanting to be sure that we're not going to mess our kids up, that we're not going to completely ruin them. And so it's like sometimes you think, well, I'd like to take the time to do this. Oh, but there's the other voice that says, but I can't because I'm supposed to be doing this, 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 and this. So we have
right.
to then reevaluate all the things that we've defined as success and progress and meaningful learning and meaningful education. Like,
Mm,
you know, it it doesn't matter, the definition that you come up with about what's important is not as important as the fact that you have to make sure that it actually is something that you want to align your actions with, align your life with.
right.
Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So do you think that we inherently can feel guilty for feeling joy, almost like it's a
Yes.
luxury? Yeah,
Yes, yes.
yeah.
I think that we think that if it's too joyful, it can't possibly be serious.
Mm,
And that's like, I'm like, how did we get there? I feel like that happens so much in life, right? Like if
right.
something is too fun, it's like if you hear someone talk about their job and they have a really, wonderful workplace experience, and all of a sudden you think, what do you start thinking? Oh, how productive are you really? Do you know?
Yes. Yeah. What are they paying you for?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
We have
Mm,
just this, we
yeah.
definitely feel guilty about that part. And I actually think that joy is actually just a byproduct of
Right.
pursuing the things that are meaningful. I think
Right.
that it's inherently joyful because you're pursuing it and it's of a high value. It's not something that and I think that that's what's so beautiful when you see people experiencing joy and a high level of it. It's because they value what they're doing and they're like giving themselves over to the enjoyment of it. It's like a
Mm,
byproduct. They don't have to force it. Um,
right. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Because we're, I guess what we're doing, we're weighing it all with that a sense of responsibility. And I would say the
Mhm.
British are even worse, like, what do you mean you're enjoying it? How dare you? Get your work done, girl.
Right.
And so that's what when I read your book, I was so challenged by it, because over the years, I think I'm better at it now as I've got older and wiser, and I'm learning more about what joy looks like to me and to our family and to our life. But and I totally delight in our learning, and always have, and want to continuously be that kind of learner
Mhm.
myself. But I I can get stuck in that sense of responsibility, and making sure everyone's safe and okay. And because we do, as mothers, we carry so much, don't we? And I think that was often a barrier to me for really feeling like I can just breathe, relax, and enjoy my children. Do you see that in other people? Did you experience that yourself?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. When sorry, I had like a when you were speaking before, I had a little my computer started to go crazy. So I don't know if you saw it in my
Oh,
eyes. I was
no. Okay.
I couldn't see a visual of you, and then I was trying to like get it back up on the screen. So I
I'll be
apologize.
back.
I wasn't
No
entirely focused
problem.
on that
No
last
problem.
question. But when you first started talking, it did make me think of something. It might not be what you just asked me, Leah, but
Don't
um
worry.
I asked my children recently, I asked them to tell me what is one thing that makes learning joyful for you. And some of the things that they shared with me, it was really moving, because basically, without saying exactly what it is they said, some of the things they brought out were that it was meaningful. The content of whatever they were learning was meaningful, right? So they saw how it related to their real lives. They saw that it sparked some sort of interest for them or engagement. And then another thing that they felt like made it a joyful experience was that they had a level of autonomy and they had a level of choice about
Mm,
what it was that they were learning about. And I think about this, and I'm saying this about my children, but think about how this translates to the joy that we experience in other contexts, right?
mm,
Like, is what we're doing, the content, inherently meaningful? Do we have a manner of choice and autonomy in how we get to do it, even when it comes to raising our children, right? Um, Positive emotions. They said that they just loved incorporating humor and enthusiasm and those sorts of positive affirmation and encouragement. All of those things
mm,
make for a good learning environment,
mm,
right? They enjoyed collaboration and connection. Those things made it a more joyful experience. So to work together on things, to challenge each other, to ask each other questions and comment on each other's work, and to do projects together and things like that.
mm,
They said that there was a sense of like curiosity, exploration. So they got joy from asking questions and not knowing all the answers. And like that was an inherently exciting place to be, that space to be in, where it's not like you actually have it all figured out, but you're in some sort of a process of
wow.
figuring it out. And then they said also just like a sense of mastery. My son very
Mm,
clearly was like, it's really joyful when you accomplish something meaningful to you, when you
it
actually
is.
and you have a goal and you reach the goal and you get feedback about that goal, and it's opportunities to practice a skill that leads to accomplishment of the goal. You know what
Mm,
I mean? And then
mm,
and playfulness, so like not being so serious about everything that you can't even just let your guard down and laugh or
mm,
smile or breathe, you know what I mean?
yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
I think about those things a lot, and I'm like, I actually wrote down all those things that they said and that's actually what made my computer start going crazy, is that I started hunting on my computer for
Um,
where I wrote down where they said that, because I had to take notes because it made me think about learning in their context, but also
mm,
what makes learning joyful in any context I'm in, whether it's me in a class, whether it's me in church, whether it's me in like just all different types of places
Mm.
where we find ourselves growing, you know?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I'm a avid student of Charlotte Mason's work, have been for a very, very long time. And she uses the word delight a
Mm,
lot. And
mm,
she says education should be for delight. And she refers to this in every sphere of our children's learning. So, and she, the difference between rote memorization of a poem or some history facts, she, compares it to remembering and reciting a poem because you love it and it makes you smile and it's
yeah.
delightful, or reading a history story and then retelling it to your mum, or building it out of Lego. She doesn't talk about Lego, obviously, because 20th century. But
Right.
that delight, that's my modern Miss Mason interpretation. But I love that. That is a the plumb line to our kind of watching how our children are responding to the
Yes.
educational stimulus in their home. Are
Mhm.
they finding delight? And then I fire it back on myself always. Am I finding delight? And I think
Yes.
that's a really good kind of a measure of
Mhm.
our educating days. If you're going too long and you're miserable, and this is what I think you and I think the same on this as well. I've always felt very strongly about not getting as much as possible, and I know not all situations are the same, but not getting to that point of complete burnout
Right.
because you have never allowed yourself to find delight or just rest or just press
Yeah.
pause. And
Yes.
that is a daily decision.
Mm,
How am I feeding my inner life? How am I
yes.
actually recognizing I'm a born person? I'm a learner too. And I
Mhm.
often think that I used to, in my younger mothering days, when I started sharing this stuff, I talked about me
Mm,
time versus mother culture. And I think it's very different. And
mhm.
how often women, classically will be like, desperate for the weekend, or I need a spa weekend, or I need to get away with friends. Maybe that's just British women. I don't know. That's what they talk like. And I'm like, how do we live where we don't have to get to that point where yes, I'm all for going away with the girlfriends and having adventures. Absolutely, but do it for delight and enjoyment, not because of your absolute exhaustion and breakdown. And
Right.
how do we input into ourselves and each other in community so that we're not getting to that point? I don't know how I got how I got to that point, but anyway, I was just thinking about it, and that joy, it is for the household, for the atmosphere of the home, and for the parents too. And not that we're constantly walking around with a huge smile on our face. Life is life,
Mhm.
but that we have to prioritize it, don't we?
Yes, and I also think, how can we expect to nurture our children through the process of growth and learning if we are disconnected from that process ourselves?
Right, right.
I don't think we can do it very well. So not only do I need to observe my children as learners, I need to observe myself. I
Right.
need to be growing. I need to be learning. I need to be doing exactly what you just described, and nourishing that part of myself to learn how it is I can experience that same joy alongside of them.
Mm, mm,
Because then I can more, what I'm speaking into their lives is going to be that much more impactful. And I agree with you. We unfortunately somehow semi pursue that for after burnout happens, and
right, right.
it's just not I, everything you just said, Leah. I
Yeah.
in complete agreement with. If we need to do that a little bit, even in little ways every day, it's really small. I want to show you all. And this is me, right? Like this might not be something that you brings you joy or that you feel like nourishes you anyway. But there's this, I don't know if you all could see this. It's backwards, but
Uh,
it's
looks
called
beautiful.
Bird Note. Okay. And I started actually listening to this podcast. It's a podcast, and I think it's actually from a public radio show. And
Okay.
it's very, very short. And every episode tells you some interesting fact about a different bird. And
Love that.
I love birth. And I actually discovered recently that they put it all into a book. And so I will just, randomly just come and read one of these things, but it's something that just makes me so happy because I just love
Yes.
birds.
Yes.
I love watching them. I love observing them. But I mean,
Mhm.
pick a different subject, and
Yeah.
this could be anything. Doesn't take me more than 10 minutes to do, but it's
Mm.
something that I enjoy. And I'm like, it's so wonderful. All of you who said that in the chat about this is what I'm learning. It's just so wonderful to say that you have something, even if it's
That's right.
look up a word. I used a new word today that I've never used before. It's just exciting to live that way. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And
Oh,
I
it
think
really is.
it helps to life is life and hard things happen. But when you're in a place where you're concerned about living joyfully and growing as part of the messy process of experiencing life,
Mm.
it's not, and knowing that rest is a part of that, you don't experience burnout the same way. I'm not saying there are
Right.
not times that I don't say, oh, I would love to have a vacation, because you've been
Yeah, of
working really
course.
hard at something, but it's not the same. I've been in the other side. I know what that
Mm.
looks like when you're just
Mm.
utterly, you're not even a life-giving person because you have
Right.
nothing to give. You're just so burdened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I feel like we're just getting warmed up and we really can't keep going. But I want to take a slightly different tangent, and I haven't even warned you about this, but I think you'll be okay.
Okay.
Something I've observed about you, and some people might even find this hard to consider because it's not their situation. I've observed your relationship with your mum.
Hmm.
And I see it in myself because I will travel with my mum whenever I can. I take her on trips. I've brought her to Wild and Free in Nashville. So but this I guess I've captured it a little bit from your Instagram, but sometimes what you've shared. Um, Tell us why that's important to you. What is it about? Is there a multi-generational vision for your family and your household? Is that just that she lives close by and you make sure she's involved? But I feel like it's intentional in your sharing. It might not be, but I feel like it is, and I feel like that could really speak to some people.
It is so intentional. I hope I don't start crying when I say this. It's so many things. I don't even know if I can fully capture everything. But when I think about my mother, especially in my context of education and learning, she was my first role model for
Mhm.
all of these things. Now, I was not homeschooled as a child, but I always talk about how I felt like I was.
Yeah, me too.
And that's because of who my mother was. So my mother was born in Martinique, which is the French Caribbean, and she spoke only French, came to America and learned English, became a citizen years later. But she was always, from the time I was very young, just always having to put herself in new situations and learn. And when she was raising my brother and I with my father worked a lot, but he was always English speaking. So my mother, with the language barrier,
Mm.
culture differences, she was always learning alongside of us. She was learning about music. She was learning about, language. What does that mean? Is that slang? She was just always learning. And she was also always wanting she could never be left out of something, like if there was technology to learn, she wanted to know how to do it. If she always has enjoyed gardening. So she was always learning and figuring out what foods would work to plant in our little New York City backyard garden. She was just, if she would have coworkers who were from different places around the world, and she loves food and she loves cooking and she's very hospitable, and she would learn from them how to make their culture's food to the point where, like, we love such a diverse range of food because she was cooking it. I mean, and so she's just such an exciting person to me, and I look up to her so much. And She does live very close by. She and my dad, their house is about 6 minutes away from where we live. And
Nice.
so the kids have the wonderful benefit of having grandparents that are very close. And she is wanting to, I post these pictures of my mother, at a playground swinging on monkey bars with my younger boys when they were younger. Like,
Mm,
because they thought she couldn't, but she could, and she wanted to show
mm.
them. Like she just, it's just, she's just such a fun, interesting person, to be around. When I was in high school, she decided that she was going to finish college, and she was struggling to write papers because of the language, and she asked me to help her. And I would sit
Wow.
there and interview her on all of her thoughts and ideas about what was going to go into this paper, and then help her to compose the thoughts in English. And I learned so much about her in that time.
Mm.
But she's just very fascinating. I'm not saying my dad is not, guys. I love my dad. I love him to death. I love him deeply, but I see
Yeah.
myself in my mother.
I get
Um,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And she is just she's motivating to me. She's inspirational to me. She's
Mm.
also very encouraging of the things that I'm doing. Sometimes she doesn't even always understand them, the things that I'm doing with the children.
Yeah. I think
She,
my parents were like that. We're like, we have no clue what this means, but I mean, it looks great and we trust you, and they seem to be happy.
my mother mothers me well, and
Mm,
she has helped me be a better mother.
mm.
Because um there's so many traditions and things that she began in me, and I honor her by, continuing them, I suppose. But yeah, I also get very emotional talking about my parents because I'm getting older.
Yeah,
They're
I
getting
know.
older, and that's a very
Yeah.
hard thing to sit with. And
Yeah.
I won't go there, but it's.
Yeah, I'm there too. I get it. And it's yeah, yeah. But we
Yeah,
treasure that time, don't we? They are, yeah. Thank you
yeah,
for sharing that. I just
yeah.
thought I've observed that about you. I love that. I love seeing that. And I think it's lovely to hear. Okay, tell us more about the book then before we come into land. And I want to see if anybody's got any questions or comments, please put them in the chat and I will jump in there in a moment. But why do you think this amazing group here and who are going to be watching on the replay, why should they read The Joy of Slow, Leslie?
I really feel like this group is very exciting to me. Leah has told me so much about this group and all of you. And it's so interesting to me, the things that you do, the things that you do in this space, the
Mm,
reasons why you gather, the things that you share, your writing, your reading, it's I love it all. And I feel like there are things and ideas in the book that would resonate well with you.
yeah,
I talk about slowing down and doing what's meaningful and learning and education, um it's not so much about, one philosophy. I even try very intentionally to incorporate a lot of research and references to people who are Charlotte Mason minded and classical minded and Reggio Emilia and traditional education. And because we none of us have created a perfect educational system, and I wanted to just let's talk about just the ideas of learning, and
mm.
what at its foundation is most exciting and joyful. And I feel like it's something that this community would connect to. So I really do hope you check it out.
I heartily agree, hence me bringing you on here. Just bear with me a second, I've lost the chat room. Hang on. How do you lose the chat? I don't know how I've done that.
I
Yeah, and
would
if
just
and if anybody is feeling a dab hand on the chat, if you want to put a link to Leslie's book, that would be amazing as well. Here we go. I found the chat. Oh, it's buzzing. It's buzzing. All right. Okay, so I'm just going to read some of these comments. Um, so Alison saying, as far as my mum versus dad involvement in education, I like to remind my children and thank my husband that we get to do what we do because my husband does what he does, put in the work outside the home to pay my bills and support all my new sudden and crazy ideas. Love that, Alison. Um, My teens have a greater appreciation of their own learning processes when they regularly see me learning, reading, commonplacing, etc. That being said, it also teaches them self-compassion when I admit I need a break from the day and go lie down for an hour to rest. Me time to balance home education and mother culture and everything else that we take on as mothers. Yeah, so good. Victoria, I've always said that I want my children to be lifelong learners, so obviously I need to be too. So true. Yeah. Love that. And I think we've got some more learning going on here. I have started a knitting project and sewing project for my daughter's dolls, learning and refreshing up on my old skills. That's absolutely brilliant. I love that. I love that. I love that. Um, okay, I'm going all the way back here. Oh, Joanne is telling us she has learned how to make Fabergé style eggs and macrame. Joanne is so crafty. She's amazing at creativity. Joanne, you are amazing. She's in Northern Ireland. She's fantastic. She's one of our favourites over here on the collectives. Um, let's have a look. Hang on, I don't want to miss. Anna is commenting. I'm just remembering what about the Britishness. That's right. It's certainly a very British thing, perhaps elsewhere too, to talk mostly about how hard things are. This is true, especially when it comes to parenting, raising children, to the point that you feel like sometimes you have to find something to complain about in order to enter into conversation with people. It's so true, Anna. I think Northerners as well, especially, which we are. We do like to have a good moan. Let's turn it on the head. We've had Leslie talking to us now. Okay, question for Leslie. The United States education system does not lend itself to the idea we share here. For someone who shares your passion for learning as well as your educational philosophies, what college level path or major would you recommend they pursue?
Mm. Allison, so are you in the US?
Yes, she's in
I'm
Florida.
just going to flip on my
For the-
audio real quick. Yeah,
Go
the
on, go for
question
it.
is twofold. I'm in Jacksonville, Florida. Um, my daughter at one time fancied herself a teacher to pay the bills to support her writing career, and I told her flat out she'll be miserable. I don't know if that was a brilliant mom move or not, but specifically that was my thought in mind, and that and like people who want to be able to do things a little bit differently. Is it psychology? Do you get that education major? I don't have a bachelor's degree. I have no idea what that looks like, but you've had a foot in both worlds, so I'm very curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, my thoughts are pretty diverse on that one. So I um, hmm, I don't necessarily think if you are someone who loves to learn, I don't think that you can necessarily capture that in one particular major. I think that you can pursue something in college, anything really, and still continue and as I believe you should be, continue to be somebody who loves to learn. Um, I think that you can choose to pursue a degree in something because you want to work in a particular area, but your growth, your interest expands that area. And then you see people sort of carving out their own path and trying to create majors and things like that that sort of encompass all of them. I don't really know that that's possible, especially when your interests are diverse and when you're I realized for myself that I love to teach and I love to observe learners. And so I decided to pursue a degree in education. And ironically, I felt like it was one area that did actually allow me to get to know a lot of things about a diverse range of topics. But the way I'm using my degree is not very traditional, right? Like, so I don't know. I don't think that I think you should pursue if you want to go to college and you want to pursue a degree, I think that you should do it because it's really interesting to you. What you do with it or outside of it or in conjunction with it is like a whole nother conversation. I don't know. Is that
Any
is that
comments, Alison? Is that helpful?
If you were to be able to do it again, would you go back and pursue your degree in education to become a teacher, or would you pick a different degree?
100%. I would. And then I would also get a degree in physical therapy, and I would also get a degree in naturopathic medicine, and I would also get a degree in
Do you want to hear my list?
physical therapy. So yes, I would. And then I
Yeah.
do writing too. I do that too. Um, so, listen,
Mm.
yes, I would do it exactly the same, but I would add more if I could. My daughter is
Yeah.
really thinking, she's an artist, and I thought she was going to pursue something visual art and, in that area, and book illustration, because she does all of that. And then she's also loves animals. So she was like interested in, being a vet. And now she's looking at physical therapy and thinking, this is wonderful, because she's in physical therapy a few times a week for a surgery that she had, and realizing that she has so many of the qualities and skills that make the people who work with her very exciting. And so I don't know, it's just like you can, but I know that she's going to be so much like me. I can just see it, like so many interests, so many ideas. She's going to
Yeah.
end up pursuing something, but and there's people who go back and have multiple degrees for that very reason. But to answer your question, yes, I would go back and get a degree, the same degree again. I would.
I
Um,
love that. Stephanie's he's saying here, both you ladies have helped inspire me to slow down and be more flexible with our home education. I read your book, Leslie, and I've recently incorporated special project time in our home. I had two questions about this concept, and we'll finish with these. One, what does special project time look like in your home? Two, how do you manage your child pursuing a special project that doesn't result in a tangible, measurable result? For example, my son is interested in hunting, trapping, tanning, and is watching videos about this.
Mm. Yeah. So in my home, it's looked very different over the years. Every year it changes, and daily, sometimes weekly, because it really does depend on what interests we're all pursuing at a particular time. So we've had times, especially when I was sort of building this as a routine when they were younger, we would do this every morning. We would carve out time and we would have our morning time together, and then we would all just go into interest based things. And I would start out when they were very young. I started out by just offering a range of materials. It was very materials based. Would you like to paint? Would you like to read? Would you like to write? Would you like to, build with these blocks? Would you like to, but we grew from there. And so there were times in our lives where it was like every 4 or 5 days a week, every morning, that's what we would dedicate to that. Then we had times where we were doing it 2 days a week. And there were some other things that I wanted to explore and do on other days. And then we had time where I wasn't giving it any time in my formal, routine schedule, whatever, because they were genuine interests, and these interests were bleeding out into all parts of the day for my children. If I had to pull them away from whatever they were doing to say, hey, can we sit down and do some math, um, and weekends. And so I didn't need to give it the same time, because that time for it was there, but I did give it time for us to share about it and talk about it, because I wanted them to know that I still valued it. And then there were times where like I've explored different things. It hasn't always looked the same. I've done what makes sense in a particular season. I've done what makes sense according to what those interests are. If they're pursuing something and they're doing it through a class that happens on the weekends, and they're not really interacting with that interest during the week, then that it is what it is. So it depends on what they're doing, is what I'm trying to say. And I've always been willing to experiment with what it looks like. But the other day, 2 days ago, actually, we had such a wonderful day. And I asked myself at the end of the day, what made it so wonderful? And a large part of the reason was because for about 4 hours, everybody was just completely engaged in their own work. And it was so exciting to be a part of that. The other thing you asked was, how did you manage it? How do you manage it when it doesn't result in a tangible project? Yes, this is why I think it's so important to be engaged in the same kind of active learning alongside, because then you can, as you observe yourself, and observe your children, you understand what a mentorship role might look like in those areas. Because I think what happens in schoolish kinds of things is that we want the tangible result as a way to prove that we've been right for letting you have this time and pursue the interests this way, because you have produced X, Y, and Z, and then I can go and judge that thing that you produced, and that's when it's real work and natural learning about anything. My daughter for a long time was interested in dog training, and she was training the dogs, but her work was actually growing her self-confidence. So guess what? There weren't really tangible results for that, but me just communicating with her and talking about her. I like to talk to I like to think about my thinking, and I like to have conversations with my children that help them to think about their thinking. So I learned a lot about her growth, about what she was working on, about what she was doing. I even figured out ways just for myself that I could document that process, even just through my own journal writing. And that made the experience even more meaningful and powerful for me, because it didn't have that tangible, measurable result, but I knew that the learning was happening because I took the time to notice it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Great answer. Love that. Well, we need to come into land. This has been so great, Leslie. Can you finish off with, maybe we all love a good book
Mm.
recommendation. Are you
Okay.
reading something at the moment, or have you read something recently that you'd like to share with us?
The what I actually have some things right here. They're like, it's true to my character. They're kind of all over the place. I love
Love that.
reading. Um, my favorite fiction to read is actually children's fiction.
Yes.
Most of my adult reads are nonfiction, but I just read A Duet for Home. It's by
Um,
Karen Yan Glasser, and this book, I met with 15 children today out at the park,
oh,
from ages 9 through 14, and we all talked about this book. This book was so powerful for so many reasons, and I love it. And right at the top, it says this book will make your heart sing. And that's exactly what it did. And
I
so
love
that's a
that.
fiction read.
So can
I'm
you tell us the title again? Sorry, what was
Yes,
the
sure.
title
It's
again?
called A Duet for Home by
A
Karina,
Duet for Home.
yep, Yan Glasser. She's the same
Amazing.
author of the Vanderbeeker series.
Yes, fantastic. I'll make sure that goes out on the with a link on the Substack. Thank you.
And then my other two things are, this book, I can't say, it's not that I read it and recommend it. It's that I'm so interested in it that I'm going to read it. Tomorrow I have to drive to 4 hours to a funeral, and
Oh,
I'm going to listen to this on my drive, but it's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry.
yeah,
Uh,
I've read that. Yeah.
you read this one? Is
Yeah,
it
yeah,
good?
yeah. It's great. Yeah,
Okay,
very
okay.
good.
So I'm
Yeah,
excited
yeah.
about that. I'm gonna read that. And then I've also been reading Night by Ellie Wiesel. I've been buddy
Okay,
reading this. This is probably my third or fourth time reading it, but I've been buddy reading it with my teenage daughter. So these are all our little
perfect.
tabs. I'll read a chapter. I'm purple, so these are the things I want to discuss with her. She's blue. Those are the things she wants to discuss with
Oh,
me.
I love
I read a
that.
chapter and then I
Amazing.
give it to her. She reads the same chapter, then we meet about our chapter, and then the process starts again for the next chapter. It's been amazing. So those
Okay,
are
so we have a lot of questions about that, but we'll have to bring you back to talk about that because that sounds really fun. And
yes.
do you have a copy of The Joy of Slow? If you saw me looking around, I was
Oh
trying to
yes,
find
I
my
think I have
copy.
one.
Okay, okay, good. Because I think mine is it's on my bottom shelf under a load of, I've got
Here.
blankets here. Yay, there we go. It's good to see this at the cover. There we go, guys. Get your copy of The Joy of Slow. So
Yes.
over here on the collective, we've just finished reading Jane Eyre. So we finished that one. We discussed that this week, and we're about to start reading Wide Sargasso Sea. So that is what we're reading as a community. But we read 6 books over a year together, and we do love hearing about other recommendations. So thank you for sharing those, Leslie. It has been just an absolute joy having you on here. Thank you for your time, your generosity of time, and sharing your wisdom and stories. I'm sure I can speak for everyone, just say how richer we feel from just spending a little bit of time with you. So thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for your time, all of you, your questions, your interest and engagement, all of it. Thank you. I really do appreciate it. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you.